So today we are going to finish Chapter 3, Lesson 2. So go ahead and open to page 81. Your notebook, your vocab notebook should be opened up to the Chapter 3, Lesson 2 notes. But I do want you to go ahead and put a squiggly line underneath. And then write today's date, December 2nd, 2020. And when we get to it, we're going to start with number 4. Okay. So we are on page 81. Yesterday we read about the 5 regions that this textbook puts our country into. What are those 5 regions that this textbook breaks the 50 states up into? Zadie, tell me one.
The Southwest.
The Southwest. Mason, tell me another.
The West.
The West. Cullen, tell me another.
Southeast.
The Southeast. Smith, tell me another.
The Northeast.
The Northeast. Carla, tell me the last one.
The Midwest.
The Midwest. Very good. What region are we in? Victoria.
The
The
Southeast.
Southeast. Okay, then we learned about the 2 kinds of political regions within a state. What are the 2 kinds of political regions within a state? Michaela, tell me one.
Countries.
Not countries.
Cities.
Cities. Zari, tell me another.
Counties.
Counties. Please read closely. What some of you are doing, which we can tell because of this, is you're reading the very first few letters of a word. Like when you read the word counties, you're reading C-O-U-N, and you're like, oh, it's country. Countries is going to come next. But is that what the word says? When you read the beginning and then guess, are you necessarily actually reading the word? No. Slow down. That's what happens when you read too fast. Is you read the beginning and then you guess. So those of you that are finishing books really quickly but not doing so well on the AR quizzes, that's probably what's happening. Is that you're reading really fast because, yes, it's interesting to you and you want to find out what happens next. But if you read too fast and you guess the word, do you actually know what's going on? Not necessarily. Because if we did that and we kept reading this word as countries, are we going to have any idea what a county is? And if I ask you about a county, you're going to be like, huh? Or you're going to switch them up and you're going to say, oh, the name of our county is the United States. Is that true? What's the name of our county? Ethan? Shelby County. Or it may ask you, what's the name of our country? And you went too fast, you only read the beginning, and you're going to say Shelby. Is that the name of our country? What's the name of our country? Kingston. What? Louder, please. The United States, the USA. So when you are reading, make sure you're reading the whole word. Don't just read the first few letters and then guess. Because, yeah, you may be right a lot of the time, but what if you're wrong when it really matters? And you read countries instead of counties. And then you say the United States, but it's really asking for Shelby. Okay. Very good. What is the center of a county's government called? What is the center of a county's government called? Smith.
A county seat.
A county seat. How did you know that?
Because we read it in the book yesterday.
Because we read it in the book yesterday. Okay, so let's look at page 81. And please read Victoria. your body just a little bit. Everybody, make sure your finger is following along.
Government services. The United States has 3 levels of government: federal, state, and local. Each level collects taxes to pay for services that it provides to people.
So Victoria just read the word collects. Each level collects. If I just read those very first few letters and then guessed, I might say each level colleges taxes to pay for services that it provides to people. Does that make sense? No. And you'd be like, that doesn't make sense. I'm just going to keep going. But, so then you have no idea what that sentence actually said because you just went quick and you read the first 4 letters of collects and you guessed colleges. And then it made no sense. But if you go slow and you see that it says each level collects taxes to pay for services that it provides to people, does that make sense? Yes. So make sure that you're going slow and reading the whole word. Because sometimes it's words you know very well. You just guessed instead of looking at the whole thing. Good. How many levels of government does the United States have? Mason? 3. What are they? Zari, what's one?
Political.
Nope. Colin, what's one?
Federal.
Federal. Zadie, what's another?
State.
State. Carla, what's another?
Local.
Local. Good. So we have federal. Let's look at the diagram at the bottom. The federal government means the government of the entire United States. So the president and the vice president are part of the federal government. They have authority over the entire country. The federal government means the entire country. Now look over at state. We have the state of, who knows what that state is? Victoria?
Missouri.
Missouri, yes. Correct. That is the state of Missouri. So state government is the governor and, what is it? It's not, there's not such thing as a vice governor. I think it's like the lieutenant governor is the second. Kind of like the vice president, but for a governor. I think it's the lieutenant governor. So the governor has authority over the entire state. Does the governor of Missouri have any authority over us in Tennessee? No. So the state government, that state level of government, has authority over just that state. How is that different from the federal government? Mason?
They don't,
Make sure. They, who do you mean by they?
the government, they don't rule like the entire country like the vice president and the president.
Good. Who do the vice president and the president govern or have authority over?
The federal government?
The federal government, which means the whole
Country.
country. Very good. So they are different because the federal government has authority over the entire country. That means like the president and the vice president. The state government has authority only over their state. That's like the governor, and I think it's the lieutenant governor. Then, if we go a little further, we have the local government. So that means this one little county, you can see where it's coming from in Missouri. You see where that white is coming from? That's taking one little county. I have no idea what county that is. None at all. It would probably even take me, I could figure out what it was, but it would probably take me a minute because you can see all of these little white boxes within Missouri are each a different county. So there's a lot of counties in Missouri. I could eventually figure out what county that is, but it would take me a minute. So then we have the local government, which includes the county and then the cities. The county mayor and, bless you, I think a vice mayor is called a deputy mayor. think. Not sure. So the mayor of a county has authority over the whole county. They're part of the local government. A city mayor has authority over that whole city. They are also part of a local government. A local government includes the county and the city government. Okay? So local government includes county and city. So does the mayor of Memphis have any authority over Somerville, Tennessee? Does the mayor of Memphis, well, let's do this. Does the mayor of Memphis have any authority over the people in Nashville, Tennessee? No. But what about the governor of Tennessee? Does he have authority over the people of Memphis? Yeah. What about the people in Nashville? What about the people in Knoxville, Tennessee? What about the people in Chattanooga, Tennessee? What about the people in St. Louis, Missouri? No. So local government includes what two governments? Kingston, city, and county government. State level of government has authority over what? Smith?
State and counties.
States, counties, and
Cities.
cities. But just that state, and just counties and cities in that state. The federal government has authority over what? Mason?
The country.
The whole country, which includes the states, the counties, and the cities. So the federal government has authority over the state governments and the local governments. The state government has authority over the state government and the local governments. The local government only has authority over the local governments. So does everybody see how these levels start really big with the whole country at the federal level, gets a little smaller at the state level, and then gets even smaller at the local level? To help you remember, state is really easy to remember because it's the whole state. Federal, think about the FBI. What does the F in FBI stand for? Does anybody know? Kingston? Federal. The Federal Bureau of Investigation. If you've ever watched cop shows that have FBI agents in them, they're allowed to travel. Like, who's ever seen Criminal Minds at some point on TV? They travel all over the country, don't they? Because they're part of the FBI, the Federal Government of Investigation. So that's how to help you remember. Remember the guys in Criminal Minds. They get to go all over the country because they're part of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So that's how to remember that federal covers the entire United States. State is easy. Local. How to remember that it means the county and the city that you are in. Well, think about what people at small businesses like to say. They like to say shop local. Have you heard shop local before? You have, I'm sure. It means go to the store that's owned by your neighbors instead of going to Amazon. So to help you remember that local means just the city and the county, think shop local. Because that means you want to go to businesses owned by people that live in the same area as you. Not big companies that go all over the world. Okay, which one's the smallest level of government? Zadie.
State.
Zari.
Local.
Local. Because local only has authority over the counties and the cities in that county. Which one's bigger, a state or a county? Zadie?
State.
State, because there's lots of counties inside states. So that's how you remember local is the smallest. Which one's the biggest level of government? Cullen?
Federal.
Federal. The federal government is the biggest. Which one's right in the middle? Ethan, if you're sitting properly, I'll call you. Ethan, which one's right in the middle? Smith? Smith?
State.
State. Remember, local's the smallest because it's only the county and the cities in that county. State is in the middle because, well, states have counties and cities, but states are smaller than countries. Federal is the biggest because it's the whole country. All the states put together. Now we're going to find out, okay, what is each level of government in charge of? So Victoria, we've taken a long time, but now we're going back to the book. Victoria, do you remember where you left off? Tell everybody where you left off.
Federal government services.
Put your finger on the subtitle, Federal Government Services. And in this little section, we're going to read about what the federal government is in charge of. Okay, everybody finger ready to follow along. Scoot your chairs in. And go ahead.
Federal government services.
A little louder.
Federal government services. The federal government provides services such as overseeing the
Cover up AL. What is that word?
post,
Add the sound AL would make at the end. Not quite all. Well, post all. Post all. What does that sound like? Post all.
postal,
Postal. There you go.
the postal service for the entire country. It represents all Americans when dealing with other counties,
Nine.
countries.
Countries.
Yes,
Slow down.
we've been saying counties for so
I know, because you're looking at the first few letters and then guessing. You may not even realize you're doing that. Part of learning, being a really, really good reader, not saying you aren't, I'm just saying, part of being a really good reader is realizing when you're doing that. You may not realize you're doing it. A lot of us don't. Sometimes I do it and I don't realize it, but being a really good reader means catching yourself when it does happen. Okay. So, do you think that a city mayor would ever go to Spain? Well, wait for me to finish, because a city mayor could go to Spain on vacation. But would a city mayor go to Spain and talk with somebody from the government there to help the whole United States? Would a city mayor do that? No, because the city mayor is only in charge of what? Michaela?
that city.
That city. So is it going to help very much if the city government goes to the president of France and says, hey, you need to do this with us in the United States? Is that going to help much? No. That's what that last sentence says. The federal government represents all Americans when dealing with other countries. It would be silly if a local government or a state government did that, because do they have anything to do with any of the other cities or states in the country? No. So the federal government, which is in charge of all cities, states, counties, whatever, in the United States, should be the one dealing with that. Please make sure you're staying on the page with us. Okay, thank you, Victoria. Read next. Zari, loud and slow.
The federal government also makes treaties or agreements between groups or countries.
Okay, pause.
Counties.
Zari, look at it. Don't guess.
Countries.
Okay, don't guess. Don't second guess yourself. Look at the word. If you look at the word and you see that R, it's countries, no matter what. If you look at the word and you don't see that R, well, then it's counties, no matter what. Okay, so Zari, what's our fourth vocab word?
Treaties.
Treaties. Put that book down right now before I take it away. Treaties. And what are treaties, Zari?
Agreements between groups or countries.
Agreements between groups or counties.
Countries.
Sorry, see? I do it too. Countries. So treaties are agreements between groups or countries. It's like what we said earlier about, would it be a good idea or even helpful if the governor of Tennessee tried to make a treaty with the Prime Minister of England? No, because then it would only work for that one state. And is that helpful if we have an agreement that just affects Tennessee when there's the whole country to think of? No. So that's why the federal government is in charge of this. Everybody finger ready to follow along when you're finished? Zari, when you're ready, you can continue.
Some treaties are made to avoid or stop wars. Others are agreements about trading goods, service, or information.
Services. Don't forget the S sound at the end of the plural noun. A lot of you tend to do that. Okay, so if you were kind of like, okay, a treaty is an agreement between groups or countries, but what does that mean? Well, treaties are used to stop wars, because if two countries have agreed to stop fighting, well, would that stop a war? Yeah. There are also agreements about trading goods. We might say to China, hey, if you give us these electronics at a discounted price, we will give you some of our crops at a discounted price. That's what they mean about agreements about trading goods. Services means, hey, if you agree to take some of our customer service calls, we will translate the Chinese writing into English. Things like that. Services, remember, things that people do. Goods are actual things you can hold. Information means, hey, China, if you tell us what's going on in North Korea, because there's stuff going on there, we will help you out with what that information could mean. Okay, so those are the federal government services. Let's make a table in our notes. Is that helping you to understand the federal government services right now? Is it? Yes or no? So should you be looking at that? Zari, please don't worry about it. So should you be looking at that right now? Let's make a table. We're going to have 3 things on this table. What does the federal government do? What is it in charge of? What is the state government in charge of? You don't need a whole lot of room, just like a few little spaces. And what is the local government in charge of? So far, we've read about the federal government. What is one thing that the federal government is in charge of? Give everybody a second to finish. Okay, everybody should be done setting up their table. What is one thing that the federal government is in charge of? Zari.
One whole state.
Okay, nope, that is not true. Who is in charge of one whole state? Which level of government is in charge of one whole state? Smith.
State.
State government. Zari, federal government is in charge of the whole country. It has nothing to do with one state. But look at what it says in federal government services. What is one thing that the federal government is in charge of overseeing? Carla, is your hand raised? Oh, okay. Victoria.
It is overseeing the postal service.
The Postal Service. When we send letters, do we only send letters to people in the city we live in? Not necessarily. Do we only send letters to people in the state we live in? No. We send letters to people all over the country. So of course the federal government needs to be in charge of the Postal Service. Otherwise, that means we'd have to get like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different governments involved in just getting a letter from Memphis to Los Angeles, California. Because we'd have to get the Tennessee government involved, the California government involved, and any state and city between Memphis and Los Angeles, California. That would be a whole lot of people just to deal with getting one letter to one place. So that's why the federal government is in charge of the Postal Service. What else does the federal government do? Zadie?
It represents all Americans when dealing with other countries.
Which means they do what? When they deal with other countries, what do they make? Come on, guys. All you have to do is read the last paragraph. It says it right there. It's even highlighted in yellow.
Treaties.
They make treaties with who?
Groups of countries.
They make treaties with other countries.
What is this?
Okay. Let's go to the next. Is there anything else that we see other than the Postal Service and making treaties that we see in this section? Make sure whatever you're going to say doesn't have to do with making treaties. No, there's nothing else new. However, there are lots more things the federal government is in charge of, but of course, there's too many to list in just a short section of one lesson of one chapter of a textbook. We could have whole textbooks on what the federal government is in charge of, but we just need to know a few of those things. Zari, let's keep reading. Tell everybody where you left off so we know where to put our fingers.
Some treaties are
We already read that.
state government services.
So put your finger on the subtitle, State Government Services. Okay, go ahead.
State governments provide services for the people who live in their state. They take care of state roads and parks. They oversee public schools and state colleges and universities. They also help people in their state who do not have enough money to pay for their food, shelter, health care, and other basic needs.
Good. So remember, state governments, for all of these things, they only do it for the people in their states. So, would the Tennessee government be in charge of a library? Oh, we didn't talk about libraries. A public school in South Haven, Mississippi. Would the Tennessee government have anything to do with that public school in South Haven, Mississippi? No. What about a public school in Covington, Tennessee? Yes. Think about it before you shake or nod your head, okay? What about Immaculate Conception Cathedral School? Why or why not? Victoria, yes or no?
Yes.
Are we a public school?
Wait, no.
So, would the state government have anything to do with Immaculate Conception Cathedral School? No, because it's only public schools. If it is a private school, like our school, the state government has nothing to do with it. We have our own leaders. However, does our school still have to follow the laws that are set by the state of Tennessee? Of course. So, what does the state government do? Tell me one thing. There are lots of things that it mentions. Cullen, what's one thing?
Oversee public schools.
Right? So the state government oversees public schools in the state. What else? Zadie?
Provide services for the people who live in their state.
Specifically, okay, so provides services for people in their state. What else? Carla?
They take care of state roads and parks.
Good. They take care of state roads and parks. Would it make much sense for the Tennessee government to take care of roads right outside the border in Kentucky? No, because who takes care of that road right over the border in Kentucky? Smith?
The mayor of Kentucky.
The mayor of Kentucky? Kentucky's a state. Do states have mayors?
No.
States have what? Zari?
President.
Nope. Countries have presidents. Cullen?
Government.
Governors. Not government, governors. Okay? What else do state governments do? Somebody who hasn't answered yet. Why are you looking off into space? Is the answer on the ceiling? Is the answer there when we haven't written it yet? In your notebook, where's the answer? So where should you be looking? Instead of waiting for somebody else to answer. Is it right there? Can you do it instead of me trying to prompt you like a preschooler? You're still not doing it, okay. Somebody who hasn't answered yet. I guess Zari.
They also help people in their state that do not have enough money
Good.
to pay for their food, shelter, health care, and other basic needs.
But we'll just use the main idea of that sentence, which is helps people in their state who don't have enough money. Okay. So now we know federal government takes care of the postal service and makes treaties with other countries, as well as many more things that are not mentioned in our book. State governments oversee public schools, provide services for people in their state, takes care of state roads and parks, and helps people in the state who don't have enough money, as well as many other things that are not written in the book. Well, now let's talk about the smallest level of government. I don't feel like reading. Cullen, where should our fingers be?
Local government services.
Local government services. Everybody make sure your finger's ready to follow along. Cullen, make sure that you're reading loudly so everybody can hear, including back in the back.
Counties and cities.
Wait, read the subtitle again, because when you read it before, you were only telling people where to be.
Local government services. Counties and cities provide services for the people in their communities. They build and repair local streets. They provide police and fire protection. They oversee librarians,
Not librarians.
libraries, and public schools. In addition, counties are in charge of local
Chunk it. Carlin, not sure what you're doing, but it's very distracting. Let's chunk it. Here, I'll write it on the board. Let's chunk it. Let's find where the syllables are. We have that all by itself. In a syllable, it almost always means it's a long sound.
E. L.
Look at where the E is after the L, not before.
Lee.
It's not a long E. There's nothing here that tells us it's long. It's a short E.
I.
You're saying long I. Short E. Long E is E. Short E is, what does short E say? Class? F. 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 So, L, F,
Lek.
lek. And then we know if we see T-I-O-N, it says,
Tom.
not tons. T-I-O-N, whenever we see it, it always says shun. But,
Shuns.
so, E, lek, shuns.
Election.
Okay? So read that sentence again.
In addition,
Not countries. Slow.
counties are in charge of local elections.
Okay. So now we know the things that the local governments do. What is one thing that the local government does? Cullen.
Oversees libraries and public schools.
So, it oversees libraries and public schools. Now I see states also oversee public schools. They work together to make sure that public schools are doing what they need to do. Also, the federal government has a division that oversees public schools. So the federal government, state government, and city government all work together to oversee public schools. Okay, what else do local governments do? Victoria.
In addition, counties are in charge of local
charge of local elections. What else? I have a lot of people that are waiting on others to give answers. Smith.
Build and repair local streets.
They build and repair local streets. Now we see that states also do something with roads. Well, that means like interstates and major highways are taken care of by the state government. But things like Central Avenue, right outside the school, are taken care of by the local government because it's not a major state, interstate, or highway. What else do local governments do? Everybody can be finding these answers. Carla?
They provide police and fire protection.
They provide police and fire protection. If you're making all those noises, please stop. Because imagine if the state was in charge of fire protection and your house was on fire and you had to call somebody in Nashville, because that's where the head of the fire department is, to get somebody to send a fire truck to your house in Memphis. Well, by the time they got there, it would probably be way too late. Same with the police. If something's happening and you need the police, but you had to call somebody in Nashville to get a police officer sent to you, well, it might be too late by the time they get there. That is why local governments provide police and fire protection. Anything else? That's it. Okay, so finish writing that, and then we will move on to the next page. Okay, Colin, please continue reading on page 82. Everybody, finger ready to follow along. Colin, where should our fingers be?
Special directors.
Not special. You did that thing where you read the first two letters. Special. Chunk it.
Distracts.
Not distracts. That's an I, not an A. Short I. You said short I the first syllable. The second syllable also has a short I sound. Zadie?
Districts.
What is it, Colin?
Special districts.
Special districts. So everybody's finger should be ready to follow along where it says special districts. Okay, go ahead.
Special districts.
A little better.
To organize all these services, people often divide counties and cities into even smaller regions called special districts. Many counties and cities are divided into voting districts, schools districts, and police districts.
So think about, let's see, since we're not in public school, it might be a little harder to understand, but, well, Cullen, I don't know if you know this answer. You may. If you went to public school, do you know which public school you would have to go to? Like, have your parents ever talked about it?
I've already been to public school before.
So which one did you have to go to?
I went to Lighthouse.
That's not public school.
Oh.
That's like a Montessori school, and it's a preschool. That's not a public school. Who knows what, if they went to a public school, who knows which one they'd have to go to? I knew this when I was a kid. I don't know why. But, Zadie?
Potts Camp. It's a public school, but it's a long way away.
Okay. Is that near your house? Do you live? Okay.
No, but we drive a long way to go.
Okay. Victoria?
I wouldn't go there, but I know it. It's called
Idlewild, yes, I do. That is true because you live in Midtown. Midtown is part of there's the Shelby County School Districts, which has all of the schools that are in Shelby County. But then your neighborhood also has a specific public school that you have to go to. And you have to go to that one because that's where your house is. So like Victoria said, she lives in Midtown, so she'd have to go to Idlewild.
It's like right behind.
Because it's right near her house. Smith, do you know which one you'd go to?
I would go to Snowden.
Smith would have to go to Snowden because it's in Shelby County School District and it's closest to her house. Zari, you're actually, I think, in a different school district altogether. Which school would you go to?
Oakland School.
Oakland School, Oakland Elementary. Helen?
Drummond Elementary?
Probably Drummond's, yes, Drummond's Elementary. So and you would be in the Tipton County School District. Zari, you would be in the Fayette County School District. The rest of us, I think, would be in the Shelby County School District somewhere. So that's what happens. Those are the school districts. Because is it easy for the person in charge of schools in Tennessee to be in charge of every single school in Tennessee? No. So then we have these school districts. So the school districts have all the schools in them. And then when the person in charge of public education in Tennessee needs to meet with everybody, they only meet with the superintendents of those districts instead of every single principal and every single teacher in all of those schools. It's the same with the police. There are police districts. Like, Cullen, your dad, is he allowed to arrest somebody in Arkansas? If they're in Arkansas, is he allowed to go to Arkansas and arrest a criminal?
He's only a Bartlett police.
There you go. So Cullen's dad is part of the Bartlett Police Department. That means, I didn't know if he was part of Memphis Police, so that's why I said Arkansas.
Bartlett.
So that means he can't actually go to Memphis and arrest criminals. He can only arrest criminals in Bartlett. People who are part of the Memphis Police Department cannot go to Bartlett and arrest criminals.
He used to, though.
Well, because he might have used to been. That's what it means by police districts. Because if one police department was in charge of all of Memphis and the surrounding areas, that would be really, really hard. That's why they have these police districts. It's the same thing as the school districts. If one person was in charge of all the schools in Tennessee, that would be really, really hard. So that's what these special districts are. Think about when your parents voted. Depending on when they voted, they had to go to a specific place. If they voted on election day, they had to go to a specific building to vote. If they voted early, you can go anywhere. But if you vote on election day, you have to go to a specific place. Because again, would it be easy to count every single person's vote from the entire city or state at once? No. That's why if you live in a certain area, you're supposed to go to one certain place so that they only have to count votes from that small group of people instead of a massive group. Okay, so that's what those special districts are. They make even smaller political regions to make things easier to run. The bigger the area, the harder it is to be in charge of it. Think about a house. Which one's easier to clean and keep nice? A small house or a massive house? Mason.
A small house.
A small house. It's the same thing with the government. The smaller the political region, the easier it is to keep it running well. Okay. Please read the summary of this lesson, Michaela. Loud and slow. Make sure your finger's following along. I just told you the section we're on.
The United States have many kinds of regions.
A little louder.
States are grouped into large regions. They also are divided into smaller regions, such as countries.
Not countries. Look at the word. Is there an R in that word? So could it possibly be countries? No, so it has to be what?
Counties, and citizens.
No. Citizens. There you go.
States, counties, and cities all have governments that provide services to the people who live in them.
Good. So that's what this lesson was all about. Okay. Yes, Cullen.
And actually, being a cop, there's different ranks.
That's a little different though. But yeah, that's like all jobs. All jobs have different ranks. Like teaching. Mr. Stevens, the principal, is above me. But well, we don't really have any assistant teachers anymore. But do you remember when Miss not Miss Bradley. I don't remember her assistant's name. But Miss Copus has had assistants over the years. So Miss Copus was above her assistant teacher. Remember, there's one Miss Arts because I knew her in college. So there was Miss Arts, and then Miss Copus, who was the teacher, and then Mr. Stevens, well, Miss Gephardt at the time, who was the principal. And then above us was Miss Donato, who was the superintendent.
Oh.
So, and then above her was the bishop.
Yep.
So, all jobs do have ranks. It's just some jobs that rank is more important than others. Okay, so you will have homework. Let me go grab it. The homework is called United States Regions. It has this map at the top. It has a bunch of sentences at the bottom. There are quite a few of you. Well, there's maybe about a little less than half of you in this class that are going to be real lost when we take the social studies test because you have not been paying attention at all. So, every single year, literally about half of the class does not do the top. That's all I'm going to say. Then when we get to the bottom, so make sure you read all sets of directions and follow them. Then on the bottom, the directions say, read the sentences below. Decide whether each statement is true or false. You can see that I added a direction. Because if the statement is false, you have to make it true. So cross out when it says correct the statements that are false. We've done this on religion tests before. That means cross out the word or words that makes it incorrect and change it to a word or word that makes it correct. So remember when we did religion, it was something like, let me think of a good one. This religion doesn't have as good ones as our old religion test did. But something like, if you had a statement that said, when it says correct the statements that are false, it means cross out the words that make it false. If you had a question that said, the sky is green. Well, obviously that is false. To make it true, you will not do this. The sky is not green. Yes, that is true, but that doesn't show me that you understand. You cross out the word or words that make it incorrect, and you replace it with the words or words that make it correct. Does everybody understand? So if it says something like we live in the country of Shelby, how would you change that? We live in the country of Shelby. There are two ways you could change it. How would you change it, Zadie?
It would say,
What would I cross out?
you would cross out country and put county on top.
So, if I said we live in the country of Shelby, I could correct it by crossing out the word country and writing the word county at the top. What's another way I could fix it? We live in the country of Shelby. I could cross out country and put county, or I could do something else. Both of these would be 100% correct. Kingston, what could I do instead?
You could cross out Shelby and put United States.
Good. Or I could cross out Shelby and put United States so that it said we live in the country of United States. Either way would be 100% correct. Anything else would be incorrect. Okay, any questions about the social studies homework? Do not forget to do every single direction. Zari, please turn your camera on. Okay, go ahead and take out your take-home folders.